Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, chapter number 10. The Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text number 35. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Amuni Bhagavat Rupe Maya Te Hi Anuvarnite Ubhe Api Na Grinanti Maya Srishte Vipachitaha Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Mayate Hyanuvarnite. Mayate Hyanuvarnite. Ubhe api na grinanti. Ubhe api na grinati. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Maya te hyanuvarnite. Ubhe api na grihnanti. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Maya te hyanuvarnite. Ubhe api na grihnanti. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Maya te hyanuvarnite. Grinanti. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Rupe Hyanuvarnite Nagrinanti Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Maya te Hyanuvarnite Nagrinanti Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Mataji. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Maya te hyanuvarnite. Ubhe api na grihnanti. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Amuni Bhagavadrupe. Maya te anuvarnite. Api grinanti. Maya srishte vipaschitaha. Word for word translation. Amuni, all these. Bhagavat, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rupe, in the forms. Maya, by me. Te, unto you. He, certainly. Anuvarnite, described respectively. Ubhe, both. Api, also. Na, never. Grinanti, accepts. Maya, external. Srishte, being so manifested. Vipaschitaha, the learned one who knows. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as we just described unto you, from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know Him well. Purport. The impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in His Vishvarupa, or all-pervading universal form, and on the other, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, but both of them are rejected by the learned, pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. This is very, very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishvarupa of the Supreme Lord Krishna. adrishtapurvam hrishito smidrishtva bhayena cha pravyatitham mano me tadeva me darshaya deva rupam prasida devesha jagan nivasa. Bhagavad Gita 11:45. Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord, Vishwarupa. But when he did see it, his curiosities were satisfied. But he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayana or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms, but the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his forms as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as the Tripad Vibhuti, or Kingdom of God. The Lord in the Tripad Vibhuti abode exhibits himself in two forms, either with four hands or with two hands. The Vishwarupa exhibited in the material manifestation has unlimited hands and unlimited dimensions, with everything unlimited. The pure devotees of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayana or Krishna. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world also by his grace, as Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, Sri Narasimhadev, etc. And thus the pure devotees also worship them. Usually the features shown in the material world have no existence in the Vaikuntha planets, and thus they are not accepted by the pure devotees. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The non-devotee impersonalists imagine the material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge in the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord, whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also in the perfect stage of salvation, eternally. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after his attainment of salvation, when he merges in the impersonal form of the Lord, known as the Brahmajyoti. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are described here as Vipaschita, or the learned, who are in the knowledge of the Lord perfectly. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakarama Yam Darati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutade Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutade Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Amuni Bhagavad Rupe Mayate Hyanuvarnite Ubhe Api Nagrinanti Maya Srishte Vipaschitaha. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know him well. So this is this purport or this verse in general is largely summing up what we've been reading about this whole chapter. In the 10th chapter of the 2nd canto, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Here we've heard another brief description of the Vishwarupa, the universal manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which was explained more in depth in the 1st chapter of the 2nd canto, 9 chapters ago, in response to Parikshit Maharaj's question to Shukadeva Goswami as to what he should do, more or less. Seeing that his time in this world was coming to an end, what is the best thing to do? What is the best mode of worship? What is the proper japa, the proper dharma? So this question was presented to Shukadeva Goswami, and subsequently Shukadeva Goswami presented the description of the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this form of the Lord is manifested in several instances throughout the Bhagavatam itself, and also the very, very famous instance of the universal form in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. But also in the Bhagavatam, later in the 5th canto, we'll hear another slightly different description of the universal form in what is called Shishumara, which is the dolphin-shaped planetary systems of the universe. And then, of course, later on in the 10th canto, we were talking about yesterday, whenever Krishna exhibited his universal form to Duryodhana, and also the universal form which was exhibited to Yashoda Mai in his mouth, which was also a different. Anyways, these are all different, but here we're wrapping up another brief description of how this universe is manifesting from the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada speaks about universal form a lot in his books and his purports. Prabhupada also saw the universal form. Maybe you didn't know that, but Prabhupada told a story of back when he was in Kolkata, whenever there was the Hindu-Muslim riots or something was going on, and there was bombings in Kolkata, and Prabhupada was in a bomb shelter, and he said he could hear the bombs, coming down and exploding, and he said at that time he was seeing this as the universal form of Krishna, and although it wasn't a very attractive form, he was still in Krishna consciousness, seeing how this is another form of Krishna which is annihilating, which is killing the demons, like this, a similar conception which Arjuna had whenever he saw that all of the different Kauravas and also the warriors on the side of the Pandavas were entering into the mouth of the universal form that Krishna revealed to him, and they were being crushed in his teeth, their heads being smashed in his teeth. So Prabhupada also saw this universal form in Calcutta, and he's also extensively written about it in many different purports, specifically in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, also a lot in the 1st chapter of the 2nd canto. There's even some in the 1st canto, and of course here. Of course, in this verse we're talking about two different forms of the Lord. We just had a decently extensive description of how how all of the different elements are coming from the universal form, and then yesterday's verse was a description of the impersonal Brahman, which I think was just covered in one verse. Where are we? Therefore, beyond this gross manifestation is a transcendental manifestation, finer than the finest form. It has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of expression or mental speculation and is distinct from the material conception. So this is, this is the only verse describing the impersonal Brahman form of the Supreme Lord. And then this verse that we're reading today is explaining that neither of these actually is accepted as is accepted by a pure devotee. Neither of these is accepted as actually a form which is attractive and worshipable by a pure devotee of the Lord. Which is interesting because we're reading Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam is full of descriptions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is transcendental sound, and all of the teachings of Bhagavatam are completely spiritual and transcendental. And then here we have Shukadeva Goswami saying that basically what he was just saying was coming from the material angle of vision. But we should understand, as explained in the 1st chapter of the 2nd canto, that for materialistic people, coming to a state of God consciousness is not something which just happens overnight. And there's many different processes which are recommended according to time, place, circumstances, and different ages. There's different dharmas, and there's different darshans or philosophy which explain the Vedic literatures, and because of this we have many different paths of religion, of philosophy, of theology, and in this way there's so many different ways by which one can come to some level of transcendence. Now the transcendence which the non-devotees are trying to come to is different from the transcendence that devotees are trying to come to. As explained in today's purport, the worship of the impersonalists and their worship of the universal form or of the impersonal absolute, it ends upon their liberation. The means is different than the end. They might perform some kind of worship temporarily for the express purpose of getting liberation, and then in such a state of liberation, they're freed from everything, including the obligation of continuing that worship. And this was taught by Shankaracharya. You might have heard of this Panchopasana. The Mayavadis, they actually recommend worshiping Vishnu. Of course, Shankaracharya is Shiva, and we can understand his teachings are meant to bewilder, and also this statement in the very beginning of his commentary of Bhagavad Gita. Do you know the Sanskrit for this, where he says that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, Vishnu is the Supreme Lord? Yeah, Narayana Pravyaktat. So this is a statement by Shankaracharya. He has many such statements. What is that? Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. Very beautiful song about worshiping Krishna, Govinda. So there's some, of course, Lord Shiva is the topmost devotee. So all of everything that he does is devotional. But also, he's recommending his followers to worship Vishnu among four others: Vishnu, Shiva, Durga, Ganesh, and Surya. I think Surya. So this worship is recommended for people aspiring for liberation, for those who are mumukshavo, who have this desire to become free from the struggles and the onslaught of material nature. Of course, this is just one of the many processes which are recommended, but this one specifically involves the worship of Vishnu among demigods as well. Of course, this process of worship is not pleasing to the Supreme Lord because of the misconception that Vishnu is on the same platform as other demigods. But the idea is that by this process of upasana, upasana means to worship, this purifies one of the lower modes of material nature and can ultimately elevate one to Shuddha, to Sattva Guna, and then the goal is Shuddha Sattva, which is being even free from the mode of goodness. So this can be accomplished by upasana, and this is recommended in the Vedas. Of course, Shankara, one of his primary goals was to reestablish the Vedas as being authoritative. So teaching this message, he recommends worshiping these Vishnu and these demigods. I was interested to find out what exactly does worship of the universal form look like, and what does that entail? And because our understanding of worship is you can't really apply our way of worship to worshiping the universal form, like garlanding the universal form, or like decorating or feeding or something like that. And there's not a whole lot. It seems really, really vague, at least in Prabhupada's, but just in general. But in Prabhupada's books, what I could mostly find was that worship of the universal form of the Supreme Lord entails mostly giving respect to the fact that there are forces of nature which are out of one's control. And ultimately, this respect and appreciation and reverence can lead one to a devotional mood. Devotional mood means a mood of service. So this is the goal of these descriptions of the universal form, is to bring one to a level of respect for the Supreme Lord, understanding oneself to be very small and understanding God to be very big, being manifest through this material universe. And then ultimately it's meant to awaken a service attitude in the listener. And then in such a service attitude, then one's devotion is meant to be placed in an eternal form of Krishna, which is existing as a four-handed Narayana form, or of course the original and supreme two-handed Shyamasundara, Muralidhara, the holder of the flute. And this is the object of devotion for the pure devotees, who reject such ghastly forms of the Lord. And you might think, how can a form of the Lord be ghastly? And it can't be ghastly. One who is in pure Krishna consciousness, they see even some of the most abominable things as being divine, because their eyes, this premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, their eyes have been smeared with the salve of love of God. Therefore, everything that they see, they're seeing in relation to Krishna. We were just recently in Jagannath Puri. There's a big famous crematorium there, and evidently Srila Gorakishore Das Babaji, I think, stayed there for some time. And then in the area where there was rotting bodies and stuff, there would be lots of flies there. And then he was quoted saying that where there are flies, there must be milk. That means that we are in Vrindavan, where everyone is, there's milk everywhere. So he had this transcendental vision. Although he was, materially speaking, he was in such an abominable place, a very impure, dirty place. He was also known for eating and drinking out of a human skull, which is completely forbidden for one who wants to, be free from material contamination. Among many other things, living in an outhouse, where people pass stool and things like this. But just to demonstrate the highest pitch, the highest level of devotion for the Supreme Lord, such personalities, they exhibit these pastimes, and they actually teach us that the highest standard is to be able to see everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and not to be disturbed by any so-called material contamination. And then in such a state of consciousness, seeing how everything is related to Krishna, the duality of matter and spirit dissolves, and one becomes completely absorbed in their original constitutional position as a servant of Krishna, where everything is spiritual and all situations are favorable for the execution of their service. So, of course, this is not possible for neophytes. If we tried to imitate, then not only if we tried to live in the bathroom, we would just fall sick. Our consciousness would be so contaminated. But definitely there would be no question of being able to focus on Krishna. Whenever we're swatting flies out of our eyes, whenever we're trying not to gag from eating out of a skull, these things cannot be imitated. Therefore, there are processes given for neophytes who are trying to come to that standard. Of course, the goal isn't that we should want to live in a bathroom. The goal isn't that we should want to live in a crematorium or eat out of a skull. But the goal is that we should be able to also have this vision of seeing how everything is related to Krishna. So one of the methods which is prescribed specifically for highly materialistic people and impersonalists is the conception of the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what is this universal form? So a lot of us are pretty familiar with it. Basic teachings in Bhagavad Gita, a basic part of the Bhagavad, a very unique part of the Bhagavad Gita actually. Bhagavad Gita is full of philosophy. Krishna's speaking philosophy to Arjuna. And then Arjuna, he says, okay, I understand. Most of this Krishna is saying basically Krishna is explaining how he is God. Any other apparent philosophy which is different from that is ultimately leading to this final point that, Krishna is God and you're meant to surrender to him. Sarva dharman parityaja. This is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna, it wasn't that he doubted this, but for the purpose of allowing Krishna to demonstrate how he is God, in order to convince materialistic people, he requested Krishna to exhibit his universal form. We were just for this past Gora Purnima festival, we were speaking about how Krishna and Lord Chaitanya are non-different. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya also exhibits this universal form. Actually, this is briefly mentioned in the Adi Lila. Whenever there's this brief mention of this pastime of Shachi Mata apparently offending Advaita Acharya, and then going and begging forgiveness, begging pardon from Advaita, and then it's mentioned in one of the verses there that after this, Advaita Acharya approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and requested him to reveal his universal form, which he did. And then this is also described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu they beholded the universal form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they danced in ecstasy seeing this, which is a little different than the reaction that Arjuna gave, actually. But the understanding is that they were dancing in ecstasy and very excited to see this form of Lord Chaitanya, because that means that they will be able to prove to people that this is actually God. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not very interested in advertising that he was the Supreme Lord, but his devotees, seeing this universal form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they felt very gladdened that now they have an opportunity to preach to people. You see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just see, he exhibited the universal form. So this is why they were very happy to see this. But other than that, pure devotees of the Lord they're not interested in actually seeing this. So what is it? Sorry, I went off track. What is this universal form? In Bhagavad Gita we have very detailed description. The universal form is revealed to Arjuna by Krishna, in which we're seeing all of the demigods, all of the forces of nature. We're seeing time. We're seeing death. We're seeing flames being spit from thousands and thousands of mouths and eyes, which are and everything is so bright that you can hardly even see it. And this form actually brings about great fear in Arjuna. I don't remember exactly the words, but it's actually quoted here. Adrishta purvam hrishitosmi drishtva. Can we pull up this verse? Bhagavad Gita 11:45. This is the this is the moment that Arjuna says, "Okay, Krishna, I think we get it, please, go back to normal." So translation, after seeing this universal form, which I have never seen before, I am gladdened, but at the same time my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O abode of the universe. So this statement, please reveal your form as the personality of Godhead, is indicative of the point that the universal form, one cannot have a personal relationship with the universal form. Of course, we're seeing many heads and many hands and many eyes, and these are features that a person might have. A person might have one head, Lord Brahma might have 4 heads, something like that. But there's so many heads, so many eyes, so many hands, and we're not hearing any speaking from the universal form either. He's not saying anything. He's swallowing flames and spitting flames and killing people and doing all these things. Of course, maybe the universal form does speak, but we don't hear any description of this. And certainly he's not speaking or having any conversation with the observer. And for this reason, the vision of the universal form of the Lord is categorized along with other impersonal conceptions of the absolute truth, like Brahman realization, like seeing the Brahman effulgence, seeing the oneness of everything, like that. So because there is no real reciprocation of love and friendship, etc., with the universal form, it's considered. It's actually, this is something which the impersonalists, they are kind of attracted to, which is a good thing. That's the whole purpose, is that materialistic people, and who are the most materialistic people? Impersonalists, monists. So these types of people, they can get benefit by having this conception of the universal form of the Lord. The next verse, I think, that one, maybe not. Arjuna is asking him to put away this Sahasrabaho form and return to this Chaturbhuja. Put away the Sahasrabaho means like many arms, and just show me 4 arms. Show me this Narayana form that we've heard about. Of course, Krishna has 2 hands. He has 2 arms. And specifically, before he exhibited the universal form, he only had these 2 hands. And then I don't know where it is, but later on, Arjuna describes Krishna. He asks him to show again his Somya Rupa. Somya is a word which the Buddhists like. Somya means like serene and beautiful and peaceful, like this Somya. So again, show me your Somya Rupa. So being overwhelmed, seeing this, Arjuna was not interested in this. In ultimately seeing this as a temporary form of the Lord, he was not willing to invest any of his devotional sentiments to such a form. The devotees they're called Hamsa, Paramahamsa. They're expert at extracting the essence of everything. And what is that essence? The essence is Krishna's eternal aspect. And whenever there is not eternality, the devotee is not interested in that. If there's some offer of temporary material sense gratification, or there's an opportunity of eternal devotional service to the Lord, the devotee always rejects that which is temporary and accepts that which is eternal. So this many different reasons why this universal form is not exactly appreciated by the appreciated but not worshipped by the devotees of the Lord. And nonetheless, like I'm explaining, the purpose is still there. There's still a purpose behind all of it. Everything that Krishna does is not just some whimsical thing like how we might do, and just like literally for no reason at all. We might just do something. But Krishna is every single one of his actions is entirely intentional, and not only does it accomplish one thing, but it accomplishes many different things in one shot. There's a name for Vishnu in the Vishnu Sahasranam, which I don't remember what it is, but it's describing this feature of Vishnu, that just in one small action he accomplishes so many different things. So this revelation of the universal form, of course, it's accomplishing keeping all of the different affairs of the material world in order, and it's also accomplishing the mission of purifying the conditioned living entities and bringing them to a state of transcendence or of Krishna consciousness. So the devotee, seeing the universal form as being material and insignificant in comparison to the other forms of Krishna, this is you'll see that this descriptions of the universal form make up very insignificant. Insignificant means, nothing is insignificant in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but like Shukadeva Goswami is saying, I've just described to you the conception of the Absolute from the materialistic angle of vision, but now let's move on to like some of the more real stuff. And this is because the universal form of the Lord is manifested from His, what is the, we have Tripad Vibhuti and, what's the other one? Tripad Vibhuti. What would it be? Eka Vibhuti? Yeah, it's not coming to me right now. Anyways, seeing that this universal form is manifested from only an insignificant portion of Krishna's energies, the devotee is more interested in that which is more directly related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And seeing the universal form and seeing that there's thousands of heads and thousands of arms and eyes and weapons and all the demigods and everything like that, one might think, okay, this seems much more amazing than, just a two-handed, young boy who is blue. Okay, he's blue, and that's really amazing. But other than that, what's so amazing about Krishna? This Vishwarupa seems a lot more amazing. But actually, whenever one understands that this is just one of the small, what's that verse? Ekang shenas tito jagat. How does it? So evayam mayate dya yoga. How does that one begin?
It's ekapad vibhutira, by the way.
Ekapad vibhutira. How does that one start? Ekang shenas tito jagat. The Krishna tells Arjuna, atava bahunaitena kim jnatena tavarjuna Vishtabhya hamidam kritsnam ekang shena stito jagat. So this is actually at the very end of the 10th canto, before revealing or not the 10th canto, the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Before revealing the universal form, Krishna tells Arjuna, after speaking so much philosophy about how he is God and how you can understand how he is God and how he is everything and he is all-pervading, Krishna ultimately tells Arjuna, atava bahunaitena kim jnatena tavarjuna. Even after all of this knowledge, bahunaitena, so much of this knowledge, what's the use of all of it? Just understand that vishtabhya hamidam kritsnam. I'm actually existing in everything. Ekang shenas tito jagat. And this is actually just one little fragment, one small portion of my real potency. There's another verse which, I don't know the Sanskrit, but Prabhupada translates it, as this, understand all beauty as just being a spark of my splendor. Spark of my splendor, that always kind of like stood out to me. It's a good way of understanding that Krishna's splendor is like a great big fire, and this anything beautiful that we might see in this material world is just a spark of that. It's just one tiny little fragment of the potential for splendor or beauty or something like that. So similarly, this universal form is just one very small, insignificant feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's kind of likened to fragments of sunlight coming from the sun. The sun is that great source which all of the light is coming from. But still, we can say that these things are non-different. The sunlight and the sun are non-different. You can say like that. Like right now in the carpet, the sun is right there. I can say that there's sun on the carpet. Of course, the sun planet is not inside of the room, or else we would all be burnt up. But the light emanating from the sun, we can also say that is the sun, and it's common to say that. Nonetheless, we don't make the foolish mistake of thinking that the sun and the sunlight are one in all respects. We still see the duality, and we still see the significance of the sun as being the original source and the reservoir of energy that the sunlight is actually resting upon and coming from. So this is this in the same way we can understand this manifestation of the Vishwarupa. We can see this as being just one of the insignificant features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for For a materialistic person, this is very significant. Just one insignificant feature of the Supreme Lord is very significant for a conditioned soul. Anything about Krishna, even his so-called most insignificant things, his sleeping, his eating, these are things that, his breathing, these are things that are very insignificant for us. Whenever Krishna's sleeping and breathing, he's emanating so many planets in his form as Mahavishnu. Whenever he's eating, he's swallowing all of these planets. Of course, Krishna is also in Goloka, and he's eating and sleeping and talking and playing and like that. But actually, all of these activities are completely amazing. And just hearing about any one of these things purifies one and awakens love of God within their heart. So similarly, this even though this apparently very insignificant feature of the Supreme Lord, insignificant is literally all that we can conceive, the whole universe. And if this is insignificant in comparison with what Krishna is really capable of showing us, then we should, there should be some development of at least some interest to see, okay, if we can see Krishna as this whole universe and there's more, then what could possibly be more than the universe, Prabhupada actually, there's one statement Prabhupada said that the modern scientists and philosophers worship the universal form of the Lord in their appreciation and their interest in the workings of the material universe, trying to trying to understand atomic energy. Nowadays we have like this quantum mechanics and string theory and all these different things. So these mental speculators and scientists and everything like that, they can actually make spiritual advancement if they begin to see how this is just one of the very insignificant aspects of what God is really actually capable of. Albert Einstein was a good example of that, where although he was such a great mathematician and he had this big theory of relativity and just super genius, super scientist and everything like that, he still appreciated God. I guess he was a Christian or something, but maybe not a Christian, but it seemed like he believed in God. What was that statement by Albert Einstein?
Something like, there's a couple of them, but I think he said I don't think God played dice with the universe, something like that.
Playing dice with the universe.
Yeah, that's not just
Yeah. So people like that, although they might have some kind of material intelligence and they have appreciation for the workings of this material world, if they still cultivate some level of appreciation for God, and specifically if they cultivate a mood of servitude towards that, then they can actually make spiritual advancement. So this is the idea of worshiping the universal form. There's a verse in the second chapter of the first canto, which is slightly related. It kind of came to mind whenever I was reading this purport, where how does it begin? Mumukshavo ghora rupan hitva bhutapatinata narayana kalashanta bhajanti hyanusuyava. Right? In this mumukshavo, those who are desirous of liberation, ghora rupan hitva bhuta, the what was the word used? Ghastly, yeah, ghastly. The devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead reject the ghastly forms of the demigods. Let me see if I can pull it up. What is it, text 26? Yeah, text number 26. Mumukshavo ghora rupan hitva bhutapatinata narayana kalashanta bhajanti hyanusuyavaha. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious, and they respect all, yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his plenary portions. So anyways, this is specifically talking about worshiping demigods. Demigods are included in this universal form, but I thought this was related in the sense that devotees are not interested in worshiping any other form of the Lord or any other form of the Lord's representatives in the form of the demigods, except for the all blissful forms of Vishnu and his plenary portions. So it's another interesting one. Ghastly and horrible. We were driving through Tamil Nadu, and there's this huge, it looked like some kind of satanic ritual going on. They had this huge wooden figure which had like horns, maybe some kind of snout. I think it had wings and like a bunch of arms and like all sorts of crazy stuff. We were driving by, I was like, like Vishnu Chittaprabhu, like what the heck is that? He's like, oh, that's probably just like their village god. He's like, yeah, every village they have their own god, they just like kind of come up with something like that. And he said that's what I guess it would be Sutta Goswami is talking about in the second chapter, the Ghora Rupan, the ghastly, horrible and ghastly forms of demigods. And of course, even lower than worshiping the demigods, which are already ghastly forms. Like, have you ever seen a picture of Kali Ma with their tongue out and her teeth out, and she's got swords or something, and she's covered in blood and a garland of skulls, Yeah, there's one like that. This is just ghastly, I actually took a class in college about Hinduism, and we were talking about the psychology of these things. Of course, there's a very mundane understanding of these things in modern education. They were saying that this, forms like Durga and Kali, where they have their tongue sticking out like this. This is coming from the innate, instinctive response to disgust. Whenever something is disgusting, like if we smell something really bad or if we see something really bad, we kind of like snare our, what is it called? Wrinkle your nose up and like stick your tongue out. And they said that this is a psychological explanation for this form which they are worshiping, which is actually just a projection of their emotions like this. But it's meant, actually the worship of this deity is meant to evoke some kind of disgust. And these tantrics that are interested in these lower energies, they purposefully try to evoke feelings like disgust and hate and things like this, and they purposely try to do these things by surrounding themselves with so many abominable things and putting so many nasty things in their body and doing so many nasty things with their body. But anyways, getting off track. But yeah, so this in Tamil Nadu, this big ghastly form. In one purport, where is that? Prabhupada, this is in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada, he lists 3 different kinds of worshippers. I was just recently reading this. Hold on. There's one who. This is actually a really good verse in relation to the verse that we're reading today. Jnana yagyena chapyenya yajanto mamupasate ekatvena pritaktavena bahuda vishwato mukham. So the jnanis. This is in the 9th chapter, right? 9th chapter, 9:15. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse and many, and in the universal form. So we're talking about jnanis right now. This is just after Krishna is explaining what is a Mahatma. In the purport, Prabhupada lists 3 things. Is it up here? Go down a little bit. Yeah, right there. What does this say? But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into 3. We're talking about... so first, Prabhupada mentions this Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mang, the 4 different types of people that approach the Supreme Lord. And then he says that there are others who are still lower, who are lower than that. These 4 people are, what is he called them? They're pious. What's the word? Remember? Teshang Gyani Nitya Yukta Eka Bhaktir Visheshate. Yeah, these 4. I guess it's in that verse. Chatur Vidha Bhajante. What is it? Su something. Bhajante Mang. Jana Sukritinor. Sukritana. These are pious people. But then there's also lower people who are divided into three. He who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord, he who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that, and he who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarupa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worships that. Of those three, the lowest is those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists. These are most predominant. So anyways, this is good in relation to that. We're talking about, people concocting these deities, concocting just whatever form comes to their nature. What is that? Kama istaisthir hita jnana prapadyante nyadevata. Is it in that verse where it said that according to their nature they worship they follow the rules and regulations according to their nature? They adopt the religious principles according to how they want to follow. So those in the mode of ignorance, they are more inclined to types of religion which are more in the mode of ignorance, like offering animals in sacrifice, etc., etc. This left-hand tantra. Those in the mode of passion, worshiping the demigods for material benedictions, and those who are in the mode of goodness, worshiping forms of Vishnu, the Brahmanas. Prabhupada talks about the Shalagram Shilas, and that how the Brahmanas, they worship Shalagram as being Vishnu, and also here in this list, he who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarupa. So this is like anything which the impersonalists do. You have the big danger of misinterpreting, misinterpretation. If in the process of worshiping or understanding the universal form, one comes to the conclusion that I am God, you are God, everything is God, then he's done something completely wrong. He's completely missed the whole point. This is called pantheism. This is what most people think whenever we're on the streets distributing books, and they're like, "Oh, are you Hindu?" Like, no, I'm good. I only believe in one God, because this is like highly misunderstood about Hinduism and Bhagavad Gita and Vedic culture and everything like that. That we worship many gods, and this isn't coming from actually. They see these different images of like demigods and stuff like that, and they think that Hindus worship each and every one of them as being literally God, the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the whole universe, like that. And it's not so much like that. There's the conception of each demigod is in charge of different aspects of material nature. There's higher ones, there's lower ones. But this idea is heavily propagated within Hinduism that you can worship any one of these and you'll attain the same result. But this is directly disproven by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pitri vrataha bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhyajinopi mam. That for one who worships the demigods, they go to the planet of that demigod. For one who worships the forefathers, they go to the planet of the forefathers. And for one who worships Krishna, they go to the planet of Krishna. So this is, it just doesn't make sense. Prabhupada also gave the example of like if you want to mail something, you have to put the right address on it, and you have to put it in a mailbox, and there's a process for it, and you have to know the goal in mind. All these different things are there. If you want to mail something, you can't just throw it out in the wind and expect that it'll get there on its own. So similarly, the process of worshiping, it should always be geared towards Vishnu, which is the source of all these other demigods. But anyways, on this topic of pantheism, if one is in their conception of the universal form starts to think that, well, hey, God is the universe. Everything in the universe is God. We're here. You're in the universe. I'm in the universe. We must also be like God. So therefore we can worship anything and everything. So Krishna says that the mountains are my bones or my spine or something like that. The trees are my hairs. So this is a part of God. Why can't we just worship any old mountain? Why can't we just worship any old tree? And especially, why can't we just worship me? Why can't we just worship you? It's all the same. It's all part of the universal form. So if we've reached that kind of conclusion, then we've messed up. This is not the point, is to become a pantheistic Mayavadi. And anyways, a lot more can be said on that. Matsya-Prabhu spoke a lot about Mayavad yesterday, so I thought I'd speak more about the impersonal, or the Vishwa Rupa. But yeah, the proper understanding is that there's actually another good verse. The Sarva yonishu konteya murtaya sambhavanti yaha. What is it? Vib. Anyways, what's the end of that? Aham bija pradapita. We're missing that line. Anyways, Krishna says that of all the different living entities which are existing in this world, all of them who have some form in all these different forms, know that I am actually the seed-giving father of all of these different things. So we can understand that all the variety that we're seeing in this material world, in this universe, and all the variety that we can see in our vision of the universal form, if we know that Krishna is the seed-giving father and the source of all these different things, then there can be no misunderstanding and thinking that we are God and that God is impersonal, etc., etc. And then like this, then one's conception of the universal form is correct. They develop a desire and a propensity to serve. They direct that service to the Supreme Lord, and then that's carried on, as opposed to an impersonalist who might worship some deity for the purpose of being purified, and then that's at the beginning stages, and then as they're more advanced, they realize that everything is one, and that you're God, I'm God, and then they aspire for some kind of impersonal liberation. So yeah, the worship of Krishna goes on. There's, yeah. So I'll end there. If anybody has any questions or comments in relation to the class, then we can take them now. Anything? Yes, bro.
Thank you, Matsya-Prabhu. I was just thinking how amazing it is, how Srila Prabhupada, without him, we would have no access to this knowledge, and how much Prabhupada worked and sacrificed to give it to us. But hearing you describe the universal form was really nice. And there's also this another cool verse in the 11th chapter of the Gita that says, if hundreds of thousands of suns were to rise at once into the sky, their radiance might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. The descriptions are just so amazing in Prabhupada's books. And my question is, in the beginning you were talking about this vision of a pure devotee, how they see everything in relation to Krishna. But we as practicing devotees, trying to become devotees, for me at least, it seems like, okay, here's Krishna and here's Maya. It's like, okay, Prabhu, you're in Maya, chant your rounds, you're trying to fight between the material and spiritual energies and take shelter. But for a pure devotee who just sees Krishna everywhere, this verse we hear in the Ishopanishad about one should cultivate the knowledge of nescience and transcendence side by side. So does that verse also apply to the vision of a pure devotee who they're just seeing Krishna everywhere, but we're kind of trained to see okay, here's nescience, here's knowledge.
Yeah, so definitely seeing Krishna everywhere. It also means being able to see Krishna's energies And then acknowledging that Krishna has his external material energy. Of course, a pure devotee is never bewildered by that, and they're never attracted to enjoying that separately from Krishna, which is the difference between a conditioned living entity and a pure devotee. But yeah, I mean, you can't say that Prabhupada had no knowledge of Krishna's material energy. He's the one that taught us about this. So even though he's not seeing the material energy as being separate from Krishna, whenever he sees matter, he's thinking of Krishna. That doesn't necessarily mean that he has no knowledge of it. He knows the dangers of it, and he can teach us how to get out of it. It seems to me like I obviously don't know what the vision of a pure devotee looks like firsthand, but we've heard about it. We've had Prabhupada demonstrate it. We've had Gaurkishore Das Babaji demonstrate it. But and in that same light, the Prabhupada being a Paramahamsa, Mahabhagavat, he could have gone and lived in the outhouse. He could have gone and lived in the crematorium and eaten out of a skull and everything like that. But for the purpose of preaching, he comes down, and not necessarily coming down, but exhibits, his level as being a madhyama adhikari, where he can differentiate between good and bad, and things which are favorable and things which are unfavorable, and devotees and non-devotees, and for this reason he's able to preach. But Prabhupada is a Paramahamsa, Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parivrajagacharya, so he's the topmost level of devotees. But for the purpose of teaching people who are afflicted by covering the material energy, it's important that, Acharya means to teach by example. So for that reason, even those who are descending from the spiritual world, they adopt, following regulative principles, following the injunctions in Shastra, being very strict in sadhana, strict in what they accept and what they eat, and strict in their association. But in reality, Prabhupada couldn't be shaken from that level of pure devotion, whereas we can. So in order to teach, they act like that. That's what it seems. The comment about the dazzling effulgence of the universal form. In college, when I first read the Bhagavad Gita, I was talking with one of my classmates about it, and both of us were just completely sold on the fact that the universal form in the Bhagavad Gita is the topmost thing there. The whole Bhagavad Gita culminates in that, and that's the most important thing. And that's what makes this so special. That's what that's what the Bhagavad Gita is about. It's about Krishna revealing his universal form. And even in class when we were discussing it, that's kind of the mood that we had whenever we were discussing Bhagavad Gita, completely disregarding all these other teachings and everything. Of course, like I was saying, what is insignificant in Prabhupada's books, what is insignificant in Bhagavad Gita and everything, but devotees, they don't give so much importance. I mean, how many shlokas do I know from the 11th chapter? I don't think I know any, actually. We spend time thinking about all these other different things.
One of the Gitas, the cover is the universal form, right?
Yeah, that's true. In India, they distribute the smaller one, universal form. Okay, anybody else? Any other men have a question? No? Mataji have a question? Yeah, she.
I have two. The first one being, what's the purpose of the Lord displaying his universal form?
So one of the purposes is that nobody else can claim to be God unless they can reveal their universal form, which is one of the reasons given in the Bhagavad Gita itself. Another one is to give a description that is more relatable to materialistic people. Right now, the only thing we can conceive of, and the only thing that we've ever been taught in this world, in life, in modern education, not even modern education, but since time immemorial, is that what is real is that which is perceived by our senses, that which we can touch and see and hear and feel, like that. So the universal form is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, which can be observed by a materialistic person who gives more importance to sensory perception than from just hearing submissively.
And then on the topic of that, when it comes to like for those who find appreciation in like the universal form, not realizing that it's the universal form, and build some form of like connection with God based off of that, but in ignorance of like this existence of a personal form, is there any way that we can understand how they're like qualified to receive that mercy of like realizing Krishna in his personal form?
Yeah, qualification of like understanding Krishna and getting the mercy of Krishna comes through devotees. So, there's no doubt that people who are not devotees can have some level of transcendental knowledge, so to speak. At least some kind of theistic sentiment is there. There's so many religions which, you can't say that they're devotees, but they might have some conception or appreciation of God like that. Specifically coming into mind is like those types of people that we meet at like the BMSE that are just like, oh my God, like I feel like the universe like brought you here and me here right now, and this is happening, and this is love, like people who appreciate how the universe is working outside of their control. This is kind of more or less what I'm talking about. People who have some appreciation for the universal form without necessarily ascribing that to Krishna. Understanding that there's some force which is out of their control, and understanding that this universe is so amazing and so complex, and I could never possibly understand it. This is kind of like a prerequisite. This is kind of what primes you to understanding, getting into Krishna consciousness. When you approach with the proper mood, because this is the mood of a devotee, understanding that one is actually, they have no power, understanding that everything is happening under the arrangement of something higher. This is the mood of a devotee. And whenever they're primed up with a conception like this, then once they get the mercy of the devotees, then they can actually understand Krishna in his personal form. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else? Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha